Hello ladies and gentlemen, Victorian Cowboy here, and we're back to talk about Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. If you haven't watched it yet, stop what you're doing, go watch it, it's worth it. It's got some of the best cinematography so far, and once you watch it, try and find the behind the scenes look at the battle sequences, because it's really cool seeing how they actually do that. That being said, that's your spoiler warning. You've been warned. Don't blame me. So, in this episode, we've got really focus on two storylines. And it starts out with the Siege of Meereen, Tyrion and Danny having a bit of a squabble about what's happening. And Tyrion comes across as the wise one throughout that sequence, just in the sense of leveling cities is not going to win you allies, and it's definitely not going to help you build your army that you need to go and conquer Westeros. So a lot of people have been talking about how Danny is now on the track to become the villain. She's got this mean streak in her now that's really being unlocked after everything that's happened to her. And I think as long as she's got Tyrion, I don't think she's going to go too crazy. Just because Tyrion will be there to try and ground her to a certain extent. Granted, that siege doesn't last very long. Danny's got 3 dragons to go out there and essentially scare the bejesus out of the guys on the ships, because they've got nowhere to run to. They don't appear to have bows and arrows to fight with. All they've got are those catapults lobbing fireballs. And fire and dragons are kind of a thing, so it's not going to affect them. And of course, Grey Worm executes 2 of the 3 masters. Though that whole parlay scene was pretty awesome, just in the sense of how it was laid out, and you've got Drogon and his entry in there. Plus, I just really like the, oh no, we're not here to discuss my surrender. We're here to discuss your surrender. And so, that was delightful. But it just goes to show how much of an idiot the slavers are. Plus, the Dothraki show up at the door, and the Sons of the Harpy there don't last too terribly long. Of course, you've got like 10 guys who get run down by a cavalry charge of thousands. So, and then later on, Theon and his sister Yara make it to Meereen and meet with Danny and Tyrion. And of course, Tyrion has a bone to pick with Theon. But eventually they do make a pact. So they will have the Iron Isles, but they'll have to change their entire way of life. But it just goes to show how these strong female characters are relating to each other and working with each other to better society, or better in their regards, in their point of view, better themselves and better the world. And of course, Theon has more confidence, but he is still humbled. So I like that fact about his character, because originally his character was super cocky and everybody wanted him dead. But I do like excuse me, the story arc that he's on right now. That humble yet coming back into being able to have some strength, but in measure. So we see the first kind of touch of Westeros and Danny prepping for taking over the 7 kingdoms. So that's probably not going to happen this season. We've got 1 episode left, and they are making headway, but they may set sail for it by the end if they have enough ships. They may wait for the rest of the Iron Fleet to come in so they can get more ships and just make it easy. Though Danny will have to be careful with that whole relationship with the uncle, because he's just a little bit off his rocker. But then again, Danny is to the point where she's like, I'm just gonna kill everybody. So she's also extremely dangerous. But that's all we get of the Meereen side, which I thought it was interesting to use that in with this episode, because Meereen, like, we had Danny show up last episode briefly. Like, she shows up and then is gone. And I wasn't expecting to see much of that. I was expecting it to be more focused on the Winterfell battle, which truth be told, Winterfell did get the most time in this episode. But having that storyline, the Marine storyline, kind of get wrapped up so neatly in this episode rather than trying to deal with some of it last episode, because I still feel like Danny got wasted last episode. Whereas Battle of the Bastards, she got to show off again. But hopefully they don't keep her in Marine much longer, because we're getting towards the end. Danny's been doing the same things over and over again, so we really need to get her out and stretch her legs. Anyway, that's the Marine storyline. Now, we get over to the Battle of Winterfell. Battle of the Bastards. What's the episode's titled after? And so it starts out with the parlay where, Jon's commanders, Ramsay's commanders, they come out, they see each other, they talk. And really, Jon was trying to play Ramsay to begin with, but the problem is Jon is too honorable and feeds too much into honor, and honor is the downfall of the Stark men. Because you've got Ned, who dies to honor. You've got Robb Stark. Kept getting characters confused. We haven't seen him for a few seasons because he's dead. But you have Robb Stark, who dies to honor. And so it's kind of this plague of honor, which there are worse things to have, but you need to recognize not everybody else plays by those rules. So calling Ramsay out to single combat, you'd think would get Ramsay's men to not back him because of that, but Ramsay's men are so scared of him that they're not going to do anything. But still, it would have been an interesting sword fight, but Ramsay wouldn't have fought fair and probably would have beaten Jon in the end solely because he would have pulled a hidden dagger or something like that. But Sansa's the one who kind of ends it with the sense of, no, we're going to kill you, and that's going to be that. Which she does eventually. Sansa is really coming into her own as this. It's the Stark women right now that are really becoming the powerful ones, because they aren't bound as much to honor as the Stark men are, is what I've seen. So Sansa's more willing to betray people to get things done, but she's been raised and spent so much time away from the Starks and lost her father to honor and has seen its repercussions, whereas Jon, well, it killed Jon, but they brought him back, but he still has that sense of maybe other people still adhere to that. It's his concept of good in the world. It was fun for me to see the Stark battle battalion planning, especially when they're trying to explain to Tormund the strategies, because he's a wildling. They don't do strategy, they just beat them till they're dead and move on. So again, Sansa comes in after they leave and goes, I know what this guy is like. He's going to screw you over hardcore. Which Ramsay does. Ramsay decides to kill Rickon. Rickon gets brought in. I don't know if he utters any words this season. I can't remember if he said anything, or if he did, it wasn't that memorable. And then he just gets killed. So that's kind of unfortunate for him. The other scene I did like was Tormund and Davos talking after that meeting. Tormund and Davos just seem to have this two sides to the same coin, in the sense of they're both advisors, they've both done things, and Davos points out they've both followed kings, and that was their problem. Also interesting, Davos is going to confront Melisandre, the Red Witch, either next episode or next season, because he's found the stag that he carved for Shireen. He found the pyre that they burned Shireen on, and if anything, he cared for Shireen. More so than Stannis did. So he's got a major axe to grind, a bone to pick with her, because he got sent away, and because he got sent away, she died. So he feels guilty for that, and he knows it. But this just reaffirmed his knowledge. And so he might kill Melisandre, Or it'll probably just be a verbal confrontation, though I don't think he'd go so far as to kill her, especially when she can still be useful. But we haven't really seen an angry Davos yet. We've seen a frustrated Davos, but it's something that we'll have to watch out for, because I'm not quite sure which way he could go. It could be the breaking point for him. In turn, he could just confront her and call it good after that. But Sansa calls out what Ramsay's going to do, and because she lived with him, so that much Jon should have listened to. There's something I've noticed about this season, especially a lot of the characters in the Stark storylines. So Jon, Davos, Arya, and whatnot. They're all a lot of wandering, lost souls. They're a little aimless right now, just in the sense of they've been disheartened in what they're doing. And although Arya's finding her way back, Jon gets lost now, especially after he got killed. So he's wandering in the darkness. So is Davos. Tormund's just following along. Though Tormund, I really like him as a character, and I hope to see more from him. But now we're moving on to the actual battle sequence, and just the scale of what they were able to do and some of the shots. They really captured the chaos of a medieval battle, and the pile of bodies in it was both sickening and awe-inspiring. Though one of my favorite shots of this season now is Jon standing up against the cavalry charge, because that's just a cool image, and that's the thumbnail of this video too. So if you go out and look at it, like just that shot, you can tell he's getting ready to die there, and then he gets saved by his own cavalry charge. And then just the sequence following him through the battle as he's fighting, and the fact that after watching some of the behind the scenes stuff, they're real horses that he's knocking guys off the back of, and they're real horses jumping around him and whatnot. So that was just that whole sequence. And although we have to admit, Jon Snow is one lucky bastard, because dodging all the arrows and whatnot, it's amazing he survived to the point where they got surrounded, which was a really cool strategy. And I was curious to see how that was going to play out, to the point where Jon nearly gets himself, trampled to death by his own men. And then, of course, you hear the horn, you see Gandalf come riding in. Of course, Gandalf now looks a lot like Peter Baelish, and he's not leading the charge, of course. Peter Baelish is not a fighter, but you've got the Knights of the Vale that come in and save the day. And then they charge in and they take Winterfell, though they do lose 1-1 in the battle. The giant, who ended up looking like a major pincushion by the end of that, gets finished off by Ramsay before Jon goes full on Rocky Balboa on his face. Ramsay gets beaten down finally, because those knights in that charge completely wrecked the army. Though, credit to the small force Jon Snow had to last that long. Of course, they did play right into Ramsay's hands for that strategy, and would have all died had that kept up, because there was no way out of that for them. But in it, we finally see Ramsay get what he deserves, where Sansa looses his hungry hounds on him. And then that half smile, like just the shots, the acting, the subtlety to some of this, where you see the characters are developing new traits. You see Jon become a beast wailing on Ramsay. You see Sansa's cruelty that's been developing ever since she started getting abused several seasons ago finally come to a head and unleashing these hounds onto Ramsay. Also, notable death, Umber, in the pile, not only gets his throat bit off by Tormund, but gets stabbed several times in the chest by Tormund. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say he's dead. Like, there's not really a way to come back from all that blood loss in the middle of that battle. Plus, he probably got trampled at some point. So, one thing I did find interesting, though, is Ramsay likes to talk. And in his talking, there's this one line he has while he's tied to that chair, and he makes a comment that he's part of Sansa now. Or there's a part of him in her. And he can't escape her or she can't escape him in that regard. And just the phrasing of that makes me fear that Sansa, and this is something that other people have mentioned too, just in the dresses Sansa's been wearing, but could she potentially be pregnant? And that line kind of, because I was on the side of maybe, but it's also just cold. They're wearing a lot of clothes to begin with. But that line, there's part of him in her. That one got under my skin. That leads me to believe that, yeah, she definitely is pregnant or something, because just the phrasing of it, it highlights too much to be a throwaway phrase. And even though it's brief, it would fit the camera shots we've seen Sansa in. It fits what we've seen this season. So that's something that might be troubling for the story arc, especially for Sansa, if she has to bear his child, and what happens to that child. I'm not certain what'll happen with that, if that's true, which now I think it's all but confirmed through that. But that just may be the English major in me reading too much into it. So that's something we'll have to see. Also, Peter Baelish is back, so we'll have to see what happens with that. I know I've seen bits and pieces in the trailer, but there's some conflict that's going to happen with him now that he's back, beyond the clip we saw, especially with Jon dealing with him, because I don't know how much Jon knows about his father's death, or Ned's death, because there is also a school that Ned isn't actually Jon's father, but just dealing with Peter Baelish, the person who betrayed him and then saved him, so that makes some weird dynamics for it. But we'll have to see. We've got one episode left this season, The Winds of Winter. Hopefully we find out more about Bran, because Benjen got introduced as an undead character, so I'd like to see more with that as well. Lots of things to look forward to. We've got the trial next episode, things of that nature, so we'll just have to see how everything starts to play out. If you've got any ideas, any thoughts, give us a comment, let us know. I'd love to respond to it. I'd love to hear what other people are thinking beyond what I find on YouTube or talk about with my brother and my friends. So, if you like this video, give us a like, give us some feedback, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, please have a good one.